Fields of Mistria 1.0 has finally arrived, and I wanted to share some tips that really helped me play in a smoother and more efficient way. This is not a perfect guide, nor the only right way to play, but if you are just starting out or coming back to the game after launch, these 10 advanced tips can save you time, resources, and some annoying mistakes along the way. So if you want to make the most of version 1.0 right from the start, stick around. I'm Mary, and let's get straight to the point. One thing I really like about Fields of Mistria 1.0 is that the game lets you better adjust how you want to play without trapping you forever in a single choice. And this makes a big difference once the farm starts getting pretty, organized, and full of decorations. If you are in a cleaner moment of the game, it is definitely worth taking a close look at your active perks and thinking if they still match what you want to do right now. In my case, I see this tip as a way to avoid that kind of clutter that seems small but gets quite annoying after a few hours. Archaeology perks that create extra dig spots can be great at the beginning, but once the museum is completed or when you just want to keep the farm more visually organized, they end up scattering holes in areas you probably don't want to mess with. That is where the practical side comes in. You can simply turn off these perks when they stop making sense for your current phase. The same goes for infusion perks. Sometimes we unlock a bonus thinking about general utility, but later we realize that at that moment it is not helping as much as it seemed. The good thing is that Fields of Mistria allows you to toggle this at the dragon statues, like Calderas's on the farm, or the one in the mines, so you can adapt your choices without suffering and without starting all over again. To me, this is one of those tips that looks simple but show how the game rewards those who pay attention to details. It is not about playing the right way, but about making the experience more comfortable, prettier, and better aligned with what you want to prioritize at the moment. If you have already finished the museum part or just want a more organized farm, disabling unwanted perks is a small bit of care that greatly improves your routine. This game doesn't force you to rush all the time. If you feel like the day ends too fast, messing with the clock speed can transform the experience, especially when you want to explore calmly or take care of the farm without that constant feeling of always running late. To me, this is one of those options that seems small but greatly change the pace of a run. Instead of playing in a firefighting mode, you gain more breathing room to enter the lava caves, spend more time in the deep woods, or simply organize a large crop layout without looking at the clock every minute. The cool thing is that this is located inside accessibility, then daytime speed, with options like standard, longer, and longest. So it is not just a technical tweak, it is a real way to adapt the game to your playstyle, especially if you want to enjoy the content with less pressure and more comfort. I see this feature as the game showing care for the player. There are days when you want more challenge and normal pace, but there are days when you just want to breathe, explore, and enjoy the farm without rushing, and Fields of Mistria lets you do that. Instead of walking around town carrying stone, wood, ore, and bars as if you were moving houses, the game lets you play in a much cleaner and more practical way. This, to me, is a clear sign of well-thought-out design. Less friction, more flow. The best part is that the system is not just convenient, it also encourages you to explore the village without the fear of leaving items at home. Town crafting stations pulling materials directly from farm chests makes crafting feel natural, almost as if your base is always connected to the rest of the map. And the detail of the open, unlocked chest shows that the game doesn't just give you comfort, it forces you to organize your farm minimally to make the most of QOL features. In practice, this saves time, inventory space, and even mental bandwidth. In farming and simulation games, the biggest enemy is often not difficulty, but excessive micromanagement. And here, Fields of Mistria hits the nail on the head by cutting down this bureaucracy. I really like this kind of solution because it doesn't simplify the game, it just cuts out what is annoying. Set up your chests early, keep basic materials organized, and make the most of village crafting stations without guilt. It is exactly the type of system that makes you feel the game respects your time, and that, to me, is one of the highest prizes a rural simulator can receive.
This tip to me is the kind of thing that separates a casual player from someone who truly wants to optimize Fields of Mistria. When you understand that breeding follows rarity tiers and that crossing animals of the same tier pushes the lineage to the next level, animal husbandry stops being just cute and turns into a strategic progression system. The detail that catches my attention the most is the weight of the moment when heart-shaped treats are given. This changes everything because the seasonal pattern gets locked in at the moment of mating, not at birth. So you start planning seasons, combinations, and goals with much more care. To me, this is the kind of mechanic that rewards those who like to think a few steps ahead. I also find it interesting how the game turns color into a long-term goal, almost like a collection genetic tree. Instead of relying on pure luck, you can increase your chances by choosing more consistent pairs, which makes animal breeding fairer and deeper. It is a layer that fits very well with players who enjoy min-maxing, because each breeding pair becomes a purposeful decision. In the end, this is one of the most elegant mechanics in the game because it blends planning, economy, and collection without feeling bureaucratic. I really like it when a rural simulator offers this kind of optional depth. Those who just want to relax ignore it, but those who like to squeeze the most out of the system find one of the best playgrounds in the game here.
This tip is very good because it turns daily animal care into something that genuinely pays off. I like this kind of system because it makes you feel like you are investing affection rather than just pressing a button in the barn. Feeding by hand, especially with better food, becomes a way to generate a special resource with real value. What makes this more interesting is how it fits with the currency of care perk. The game basically rewards those who choose to be more dedicated and attentive to herd management. To me, this is great design because it creates a clear difference between automated ranching and optimized ranching without forcing everyone to play the same way. I also think the chicken statues function is very strong because it gives a concrete destination for those shiny beads. Instead of just being a farming item, they turn into currency for recipes, cosmetics, quality feed, and even golden items. So the loop becomes very satisfying. Care, earn, trade, and evolve. Deep down, this is exactly the mechanic I like to see in Fields of Mistria. Simple on the surface, but full of layers for those who want to play more efficiently. It is the kind of detail that makes farm routine feel alive and rewarding, because even a repetitive task gains purpose when it feeds a larger progression.
This tip is one of the strongest for anyone who wants to play Fields of Mistria intelligently, because it combines profit and progress into a single habit. Selling raw vegetables seems practical at first, but cooking almost always makes the harvest yield more and also pushes town renown in a much more efficient way. I really like this kind of mechanic because it gives value to your production beyond immediate cash. When you turn ingredients into dishes, the game rewards planning, organization, and even recipe choice, especially when you already have cooking perks that refund ingredients or multiply the outcome. In practice, this changes the farm's mindset. Instead of thinking, what do I sell today? You start thinking, what is most worth turning into a dish? And that is great, because not every recipe is profitable, but the good ones really make a difference, both in your wallet and in town evolution. To me, this is one of the best signs of a well-made rural simulator. It doesn't force you to cook, but it shows you that cooking is the smartest path. It is the type of system that makes the game feel more strategic without losing its cozy vibe, and that matches the identity of Fields of Mistria very well.
This tip is perfect for anyone who has already entered the late game phase and wants to get the most out of mining. I really enjoy this type of combination because it turns a repetitive activity into something much more efficient. You break fewer rocks, spend less stamina, and still improve your chances of getting relevant ores and essences. What catches my attention the most is how Earthbreaker and Original complement each other. One expands the break area to a 1x3 zone, the other adjusts the drop type to the specific biome ore. So together, they make mining feel much more surgical and less exhausting. To me, this is exactly the kind of synergy that rewards the experienced player, because you feel the immediate gain in exploration pacing. I also like the fact that this combination is not just about strength, but about resource economy. In games like this, stamina is almost a parallel currency, so any build that makes you yield more per spent bar already deserves attention, especially when the goal is to farm rare materials without constantly running back home. I see this as one of those choices that give personality to your progression. You are not just mining better, you are assembling a skill kit that talks to your preferred playstyle, and that is one of the most enjoyable parts of Fields of Mistria for anyone who likes optimization. Reaching Renown 70 Emerald is the milestone that unlocks the construction of greenhouses at the carpenter shop, and this is practically a game changer on the farm because it allows you to plant any crop year-round without depending on the seasons. I really like to highlight this because in 1.0, the Renown cap was raised to 100 and the town repair quest line can finally be completed. So rushing to level 70 is not just about gaining a cosmetic bonus, it is about opening the door to a story and content progression that was previously locked. Greenhouses are a real efficiency leap in the late game because they eliminate the seasonal bottleneck that hampers planting plans. Regarding how to get there fast, combining museum set completions, board requests, and shipping items through the shipping bin every day is literally the most efficient formula described by the community. Daily shipping, quests, especially larger ones, and museum donations are the three classic sources of renown, and crown requests tend to be worth way more points than regular ones. This tip is about understanding priorities. Instead of spreading effort across everything, you focus your energy on Renown up to Emerald because this specific point unlocks an efficiency multiplier that makes up for any prior invested time. It is the kind of strategic bottleneck that separates those who just play casually from those who truly optimize their run. And this fits perfectly with the content profile you usually make about min-max mechanics. When you reach the Carpenter Shop upgrade around Renown 70 and 75, it feels like everything starts falling into place. The greenhouse is not just another building, it is total production freedom. You stop depending on the seasons and start playing at your own pace, which to me is when the game stops being about survival and turns into strategy. The real trick is combining this with the seed maker. Many people use it just to save money, but here, the logic changes. You start thinking in infinite profit cycles. Instead of buying seeds all the time, you turn your best harvests into more seeds and create a self-sustaining loop. And this gets even stronger when you focus on plants that keep producing, regrowable, because you plant once and harvest multiple times. Now, inside the greenhouse, these plants become completely broken in a good way. Since you don't lose crops to changing seasons, you can focus solely on the highest value crops without worry. And then comes the detail that many people underestimate. Choosing wisely what to plant here completely changes your mid and late game economy. It is not about planting a lot, it's about planting right. And the final touch is the growth spell, which practically accelerates all of this in an absurd way. Not only do you have constant production, but you can also force faster cycles when you need money or resources. It's that kind of combination that looks simple, but when you put it all together, greenhouse, seed maker, and magic, the game practically turns into something else.
The new ranching perks in version 1.0 are not just minor upgrades, they genuinely elevate the entire system. Playtime, Extra, Close Bond 2, and True Trust make animal care stop being a repetitive chore and turn into something much more efficient and rewarding. What caught my attention the most is how playtime changes the routine's pacing. Before, it was that classic cycle of walking up to every single animal every day. But with it, and especially when combined with the auto feeder that Hayden unlocks after ranching 45, micromanagement practically disappears. You still take care of the animals, but you are no longer glued to it all the time, and that frees up space to focus on other parts of the game. And then comes the direct impact on production. Extra and bonding perks like Close Bond 2 and True Trust make a real difference in how much you earn from your animals. It is not just affection, it is actual profit. The better the relationship, the more consistent and valuable production becomes, turning the ranch into a much more solid source of income than it seemed at first. Now, the detail that wraps all of this up is the big chicken. It might look like just a fun addition, but when you unlock it after upgrading Hayden's barn, it turns into a very useful mobility tool. And that pretty much defines this whole tip. The ranching system stops being just a daily obligation and becomes something integrated into your progression, faster, more efficient, and even more fun to use.